I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Montara Water and Sanitary District Board of Directors. It's April 15th. It is 7:31 p.m. Could we have a roll call, please?
Director Boyd?
Here.
Director Decker?
Here.
Director Harvey?
Here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Slater-Carter?
Present.
Well, welcome, everybody. For my president's statement tonight, I just want to mention that we've had a couple of really good public meetings where we talked about the future of the district with respect to our challenges around the water and sewer infrastructure, and those were very well received. And if you haven't seen those already, I'd like to direct you to our website because there's some good watching. May learn a thing or two. You may wind up with a question or two. We welcome you to take a look, and if you have questions or thoughts, we're here and would welcome the feedback. So we have no consent agenda tonight, no old business. New business item 1, review and possible.
Do we have public comment?
Public comment, thank you. Do we have any public comment for items not on tonight's agenda? I see Greg.
Yes.
Greg?
I have some too.
I'm afraid you're going to hear from me a bit tonight. I wanted to ask, because I didn't see it on the agenda, if the district could explain its efforts and plans to submit for the local hazard mitigation plan. El Granada is meeting tonight, GCSD, and they're discussing what they're going to do. One of the open issues that you both face is, what are you all going to do to create a submission for SAM? Because SAM is not an annex partner. As I think you know, May 21st is the deadline for filing the first plan submission. I got copies of materials from Ann Ludwig, but I assume, Clemens, you already have them, so I haven't sent them to you. But if you need them, I'll send them to you. So what are you guys going to do for the local hazard mitigation plan? And here's a hint. Why don't you try and take over the Caltrans right away by offering to do something about the trees and the eucalyptus and the fire danger on that right away?
That's a great idea, Greg. That's a great idea, Greg. I think we ought to do that.
I know you've thought of this before, but I'm just saying here is yet another potentially funded opportunity to get in line. So can you talk about that? If not now, another agenda on another meeting, but it's important.
And my public comment now is that Midcoast Community Council did an absolutely wonderful job last night. It ran very long. It's worth watching when anybody can watch it. It was mostly focused on fire dangers in El Granada, because Keith Menvold is the one who brought this up. But it gave, and watch the whole thing, because by the end you get a whole but how much the county cares and how much they're going to do. Hint, nothing for the mid-coast for fire protection. They're going to spend maybe a couple $1 million in El Granada.
My MCC report. I have an MCC report coming up later in this meeting, and you're stealing my material.
Okay.
You already stole the SAM report too.
We can have some decorum. This is not a contest.
I just wanted to get this in at the beginning, and you can add to it at the end. Everybody on the board mostly knows Howard. She called Mary Freeman up today and yelled at her for 2 hours about what the county was not doing to protect El Granada. This is a very serious issue, and I think Greg is absolutely right. And if necessary, my suggestion is we look at having a bond for the citizens of Montara and Moss Beach to take down and control the wildfire risk in our urban areas and semi-rural areas. And that's my public comment, because the county's attitude is we treat everyone equally. And oh, by the way, we'll knock on your door if you have to evacuate, because we know we probably won't have electricity, so we won't be able to warn people via phone calls or other things. And good luck. You better have paid attention to where you live so you can know where to evacuate to. So that's my public comment.
Okay. Do we have any other public comment? I don't see any more hands. Seeing no hands, let's go to new business item 1. Review and possible action concerning water main extension agreement for new service connection at 1170 Howell Street, Montara. APN 036282050.
All right, thank you, Scott. So this is a significant mainline extension for 1170 Howell Street. It's 100 feet long, so it's quite a distance actually. This was already approved once by this board in a consent agenda item, as a consent agenda item in 2019. We usually bring those mainline extensions and consent agenda form. Today we don't have a consent agenda, so we just put it up as a regular agenda item. The issue was that the applicant wasn't able to move forward at the time, and therefore the bid changed. So, or it's a quote that we're getting from our district certified contractors that had to be changed. And I also want to mention that we have as attachment not only the resolution, but also the actual agreement. We made in the meantime some administrative changes to that. We actually going to approve a slightly different agreement, updated date, and the name of the owner was corrected. So just want to be everyone aware of that. So the recommendation is to approve the resolution authorizing the agreement for construction and acquisition of the water main extension for the new water service connection project at 1170 Howell Street under the conditions set forth in the agreement prior to construction of the water main, approving plans and specifications and authorizing issuance of permit.
So move that, and then I have a question later.
Do we have, I was going to ask if we had any public comment on the matter.
We have a second. We need a second first.
Well, no, not.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Greg.
All right. I apologize to Mr. Santini or whoever the property owner is, but I'm going to take this opportunity to make a statement on behalf of the rate holders of the entire water and sewer district. This appears to be representative of an endemic problem throughout the country in other water and sewer agencies. Just to be clear, I believe you are charging him $45,000 a one-time fee for this. Is that all correct, Clemens?
No, that's not a fee. That's the actual cost of the mainline extension. So the applicant is paying for the mainline extension itself.
Right.
Fees are,
and the issue is this.
That they're different.
You mean the connection fees are different?
Yes, it's a connection fee. There's also mainline extension fee.
Right. So the issue here is this. When an applicant puts a new asset into the district, they're not just donating an asset. They are creating a burden for the long term. And if that pipe lasts 100 years or whatever, at some point it's going to need to be replaced. And if you have not been charging incrementally for that extra asset over the time, when it comes due, you won't have the money, and the other ratepayers will be subsidizing that asset. So I would submit that proper financial management requires that this particular asset add a little bit more, and you guys have to decide what that is, to the operating and maintenance costs. 100 feet doesn't sound like a lot, and a little bit more to the asset system reliability charge, which I call an asset replenishment fee, that this property owner is going to pay in perpetuity, because that permanent asset has essentially an infinite cost if it is in fact a permanent asset. And you have got to catch up. One of the reasons, the last I looked, the water reserves for Montara were underwater was because you have a history of not doing this. And I'm bringing it up now, not to pick on this one poor guy, but because when you get to Cypress Point and Big Wave, it's going to be much bigger dollars and a much bigger problem, and it's going to add up much faster. So what is needed, I believe, in proper process is what I would call a fiscal sustainability analysis of this particular transaction that says, okay, we're getting these connection fees. Do those match the pro rata share of the asset foundation the guy's joining? We're getting this future asset system reliability charge. What about this pipe? Is it all going to cover costs and hold harmless the rest of the ratepayers so they are not ever in the future going to be subsidizing this guy? Peter, I know you know what I'm talking about. So that's my comment.
We talked about it in the
Okay,
past.
that's my comment. On behalf of the ratepayers, every transaction should stand on its own, pay its own fair share of the foundation it's joining, and of the ongoing asset burdens it creates.
I don't see any other hands from the public. Let's take it to the board, board discussion.
My question's already answered. Thanks. I'm done.
I would like Christine to address this, because there's a whole lot of big districts with a whole lot of money that they spend on a whole slew of attorneys who haven't done this. There must be some law.
Can you repeat that, Catherine? I didn't get the last.
I said, there must be some reason in state law as to other districts don't do this. If this is a nationwide problem, there's a whole lot of districts with a whole lot of attorneys who would have put as much of the burden they can on the users. I believe that we take fund and through our rate base, and so I'd like you to address that, and I'll try calling in on your phone.
Yeah, sorry, Catherine. I got a little, some of that went out. I couldn't hear the whole question, but I think you're asking if there's a law that addresses Greg's concern over ratepayers adding facilities to our system or customers, and then current and future ratepayers covering the cost of maintaining the added facilities. Was that your question, Sarah?
Yes. Yes.
Right. Well, what was occurring to me as Greg was speaking, and Greg, you might have more, I'm sure you have more information on this than I do, is that once the district accepts this extension as part of its facilities, then the ratepayers do start maintaining it, including the customer that bought it or paid for it to be installed, and that cost is spread. I mean, that's the cost of the facility that is supported by the ratepayers. I'm not sure there's a law that addresses that specifically. I think it's a fiscal policy decision on behalf of each district.
Yeah, I can jump in here. This is not the first time that Greg is making this comment. Of course, you know, this is happening every time we see a mainline extension or other facility developer paid facility, right? And Greg, you won't be surprised about our response. This is built into our water rates. we just recently approved a water system reliability charge that, for example, also is taking, that is specifically for infrastructure replacement. So if the district now takes on this mainline extension, our new customer will pay for the replacement of the water main through the rates and also for the operation of the water system. So it's simply built into the rate structure.
But I think you should mention that we look regularly at connection fees and review the cost of the connection, and we will continue to do that in the future.
Correct, Peter. The connection fee is also established with that in mind. Absolutely.
Anyone else before I make my comments? No? Okay. Oh, that's a neat piece of feedback. Okay, let me try this again. The applicant has made their application under our current ordinances and rate schedule. What I understand is that staff advises that the requirements of the ordinances and our policies and procedures have been met and is recommending that we approve this. I don't think right now is an appropriate moment to come in and second guess all of that and pull the rug out from underneath this one. I take the point on fully funding depreciation. I will note that this was brought up annually by former board member Paul Perkovic. I have it written down on a stack of, which you can't see, but I have a stack of notes about important topics. And I'm pleased to report that with what we've done in the past few years, we've been coming at this in the approach that I believe is appropriate and incremental. And that is that we make sure that the money comes in is accumulating at a rate to supply the money that we can reasonably anticipate the money is going to go out. So infrastructure fails sometimes, episodically through some kind of earthquake, or there's just some kind of failure. Big heavy truck drives over something and shakes it and breaks it, or things wear out slowly over time with scouring, rusting, other things that wear things out. We have an ongoing assessment of our infrastructure that's done by staff and our engineer. This is all worked into a prioritized plan, looking at end of life and anticipated fund expenditure needs with forecasting out several years. Some kind of hand-wavy, very long-term stuff, but much more detailed as we get closer in. And we need to make sure that we've got the funds to pay for those things, plus some amount of stuff that breaks unexpectedly. That's where our water reserve comes in. This is where things like the assurance fee come in. This is where the regular taking a look at our rate structure comes in. This is how it gets done. And we work as a community system. And we don't try to allocate, this foot of pipe belongs to this customer. In fact, it belongs to the community, and the community collectively works to keep the whole thing organized and operating. So I hear you. I want to make sure that the basic principle is covered, and that is that when things wear out, we're ready to deal with it, and that we have the money to deal with it. I think we disagree on the approach with what you're recommending versus what we have in practice and what we've been actively working on improving over the past couple of years. We have do we have any further discussion? Jim, you look like you might. No?
No, I apologize. No,
Okay.
I have no discussion.
Okay. Well, if the board has nothing further, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Lohman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Catherine, we didn't catch that. We're not able to record Catherine's vote at the moment. Your video is
You're on
frozen
mute.
and you're muted.
Yes,
Okay.
I keep losing phone calls, so I'm going to
Okay.
be dialing in on a 775 number.
Okay. So that the motion carries 5-0. Let's move on to new business item 2, review and consideration of district's conflict of interest code.
All right, thank you, Scott. So the conflict of interest code is required to be reviewed biannually to see if there is actually something that needs to be changed. We made a last change to the code in 2014. So since 5 years, we haven't made any significant changes to it. We're bringing the conflict of interest code up this year to essentially confirm the existing code. For me, the reason really is this brings us a little closer. The conflict of interest code brings us a little closer to the transparency certificate that we're working towards. So that's the reason why you see this up here today without any changes. And I think this is probably going to help the application if we adopt the resolution confirming review and approving renewal of conflict of interest code of the Montara Water and Sanitary District.
Okay, do we have any? Okay, I see Rick's hand. Rick?
Question. Several organizations I've belonged to, the directors have to actually sign a form every year. Do we have to sign, each one of us sign a form here too?
Christine, do you
We
want to take?
do have to fill out the Form 700 every year, and that does require a signature.
That's what I was going to reference, Director Lohman. You might be thinking of the Form 700, which is similar.
This is
Verified.
actual, I belong to a parts group here also, and it's literally a conflict of interest statement. That, you know, I hear all the lists of all the jobs I have and my spouse. It's not the Form 700.
Oh, okay.
This was literally a conflict of interest. And maybe that was just for that organization. And it doesn't really matter.
Did they also do Form 700? Because the statement of economic interest is exactly that. That's the Form 700.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit, so we don't do 700s for the parks group. So maybe, like you said, that's in lieu of, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Done.
Okay, so do we have any further comment, questions? Can I have a motion?
I made the motion.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved by Peter, seconded by Rick. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Lohman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
We know she's going to say something. Catherine, we don't hear you. Okay, we're going to take that as a no vote. We're going to take that as a dog tried to vote. We're not going to count that. Catherine, did you have a vote on this one? Okay, I'm going to record that as a 4-0 and 1 missing due to Zoom. So the motion carries 4-0 somehow. Perhaps Catherine can clarify for us in a bit, but Christine, we may have to come back to you to ask how to record this one. All right.
Yes.
With that, let's move on further into the agenda. We have future agendas. Item 1, the CSDA transparency certificate. Clemens, you mentioned that. Was there anything more to say about that?
About the what was that?
On the future agendas, you've got CSDA transparency certificate, and
yes, so we're working towards that. I think there's a couple of more policies that we're going to bring to the board at subsequent meetings to complete the application. So we'll hear from about that process in the near future.
Okay, Rick?
Yeah, per Greg's earlier comment, do we have an official agenda item for that big committee that we've joined recently over there? Like he
The hazard mitigation plan.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this as a request as for such an item, Rick, and we'll put this on the next agenda.
It's good. Did we skip all the reports?
No, well, I did, but we didn't because we're coming back to it. Thank you. Okay, Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side.
Since we don't know if Catherine's going to come back, there were two items. There were two items on the agenda, but RCD wasn't able to attend to do their, I think it's called the first rain report, which is the samplings of, all the creeks on the coast or representative creeks on the coast. There was a report and a full presentation, and I'm going to use the term Water Control Board because I'm not sure what her official title was. The general thing of the thing was, wow, there's lots of bacteria in the harbor. And the tone was, Sam, I believe, is going to be required to write a report on what they do, how do we inspect our pipes. And this went on for a reasonable amount of time. And several of us started getting kind of antsy and said, why are you coming to the sewer district? Because we're not the cause of the pollution in the harbor. And they danced around that a lot. Catherine made a proposal that the harbor district and Sam get together and talk about it a little more. But several board members started saying, the big problem is the creeks and the storm runoff and animals and all this. So why isn't the county involved? And why does the SAM have to do a report? So they just said that's the way it is. And so Sam's going to come up with a report saying, here's what we're doing to make sure that SAM is not the cause of the bacteria in the harbor. Very interesting. Just one more quick. What was very interesting was Surfers Beach, which is right beside the harbor, was clean. And the harbor was dirty. And then down at Venice Beach, there was a problem. But right outside the harbor tested just fine, and just in the harbor tested really bad, which everybody knows. So here's Catherine.
The others who are responsible for cleaning this up are Half Moon Bay and GCSD. And so but the harbor is not on the hook, and the neither is the county. And the county is in charge of the stormwater runoff. Nobody in their right mind in this day and age wants to get put in charge of that. So the county can keep that. Half Moon Bay is in charge of their own stormwater runoff. But I suggested that we do a fairly serious study with the harbor and find out where this is coming from. I've lived on the coast for going on 42 years, and the pollution inside the harbor has been a problem forever. So, but I mentioned this last night at MCC, and I mentioned we'd work with RCD on doing this. Kellogg said, well, we've already done that study, and it's online. You can find it. I think we need to find out the solution, because it was pretty obvious, and I think Greg noted it too, that well, I asked them about the nitrates from the harbor, or from the runoff. I asked them about the E. coli from the septic sewer pit at the airport, and I was told, oh, well, that's just fine. There's no problem with that. And that was when I said, wait, they've been pumping that out sometimes on a weekly basis. We don't know how old it is. We don't know what condition it's in. But the county told Regional Water Quality Control Board that everything was fine. I will also mention that Clemens was not included in any of these discussions with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. So unfortunately, Rick and Clemens talked me out of saying, well, this isn't any of Montara's problems, so we're going to approve this and any expenses for it under protest. But I was told that, no, that tit for tat is not a good thing in this legal environment. So I didn't say it, but I think there's a lot going on. And hopefully we can get hopefully that Keishan can find some way to get this thing going, because there's too many variables, and their only solution is to blame it on sewer lines and to blame it on the sewer line providers in both instances.
So I have a question. So I'm looking through their presentation. It looks like they are premising this on the reading off of Deer Creek at the harbor. And they've got a little icon showing a human at the sample point on Deer Creek. On other sample points, they have, some places they have horses and dogs and birds, maybe some other things, but that's what I see.
Mm-hmm. Right, they explained that for us. They said upstream they're not finding E. coli, but downstream where their sewers are, they're finding E. coli.
So did they do any basic DNA study to?
Yes.
So the Deer Creek sample where they're saying they've got E. coli, did they find human DNA?
That's what they say.
I'm just looking at this presentation. It seems pretty thin.
Yes.
And it seems.
Can I make a suggestion here?
Hang on. Please don't interrupt. They're trying to create work for an agency that they regulate. If they have a finding of a violation, we should find out where it is. And if they can't produce the violation, then we need to push back and ask them why they have reached these conclusions. That's my feedback to the SAN members.
The pushback was pretty unanimous at the meeting. I know years ago when I was on Granada, somebody saw a pipe down there near the harbor and said, oh, there's Granada dumping into the harbor.
Right, I remember that.
Granada had to point out, no, that's not actually true. And went through and tested all the pipes and everything and the entire thing, and there were no leaks, on a daily basis, so.
Yeah. I would suggest this may get a bit sticky, so we should be asking for their testing results that they're basing these diagrams off of. Samples.
I believe Greg did that.
Okay. Well, Greg, it's fine to raise your hand and wait your turn. Let's go to Greg.
I think the best use of your time is to allow me to report back. I have an email that I'm writing to the, let's call them investigators, PhDs who did this study. The implications of what they're trying to do, as Scott's noted, are sticky and significant over the long term. So I'm asking for the test results. I'm questioning methodology, and I have a bunch of other questions. And I'll report back to you, as I will to the MCC, and I'll copy Sam on what I'm learning. This, of course, runs counter to some of the county objectives for more housing, because the pressure of the population increasing the pollution, they're going to want somebody to clean this up. So I'll leave it at that. But I will be, in about 2 weeks, I'll be reporting back what I learned.
All right. Well, I'm gonna share that over the years we've seen studies on this time and time again, and every time, without fail, it's been demonstrated to be a problem with stormwater runoff not flowing cleanly, with getting backwash back up into some of the pipes and being stuck and becoming bacterial breeding grounds. That was one key one. Another on Deer Creek was pretty clear evidence of bovine DNA, which could be deer or cow. It was undifferentiated, so there's no way to really know. I don't recall that at any time anyone has ever made a determination that it was human waste coming from a sewer system. So if they're going to drop a new revelation on us, it needs to be backed by real data. If there's a leaky problem, then of course we want to get it fixed.
Yeah.
But coming in with this kind of sideways thing isn't how we normally interact with the regional board, especially on matters of if there's bacterial human waste getting into the harbor. This should be a call to a general manager at SAM saying, fix your infrastructure right now. We have mechanisms and communication pathways for this. This is coming through a very strange direction, so I want to shine some sterilizing sunlight onto this.
One of the problems.
This smells bad, like the harbor does.
One of the problems at the harbor is the liveaboards. But I would like to see, and I'm going to ask Clemens to support this at the managers' meetings, is that I would very much like to see the an independent engineer evaluate this so that we can, when we come back on this, we have professional level reporting going on. It will be taken much more seriously than if it's board members. And in fact, Balance Hydrologics measures the stream flows on those, and part of my proposal that I would like Sam to consider is to have the Princeton pump station turned into a tertiary treatment plant and send the brine down to SAM and pump the water, for the tertiary treated water, into the harbor so that there's more fresh water flow into the harbor. It was said that, well, CCWD, who was it? Matthew said, well, Denniston Creek is always running, but I'd like to see Balance's numbers on that. Deer Creek is seasonal only. And so, like you say, Scott, there's stuff that gets caught in the pipes and then it comes down. And I'd like an independent evaluation. RCD is a great organization, but they get a lot of money from the county, and I think the county is their largest source of income. So I think we need independent evaluation on all the parameters that involve this source of pollution.
I think it should start by gathering the actual data that they're using as a basis for making these broad claims.
Yes.
I think it would be best if this came through one of the agencies that we make this request, because this is our regulator. We need to have that conversation with our regulator like we should. Rick?
Yeah, that was my comment, was let's just remember to be tactful because they are a regulator of us. So
yep.
Right.
Let's tell them firmly what we think and then move on.
I think it should come through SAM, because that way Grenada and Half Moon Bay are involved as well.
Oh, that's fine.
SAM's a fine starting point. They're the ones with the permit. I mean, the parent umbrella permit, right? So, all right. Do we have anything else on the SAM report?
No.
No. Let's go to Midcoast Council. Greg?
Let me do the easy stuff first. We're going to be covering the lawsuit between SAM and the Mid-Coast agencies at an MCC session on April 28th. Potential action items could be, for instance, a letter from the MCC in support of something. Could be a shopping boycott of Half Moon Bay until they stop the lawsuit. I've heard some interesting stuff. What I would request of people involved here in Montara is if you have any thoughts on what you think the MCC should be doing or not doing in discussing this item, I'd love to hear them, and it will affect the materials I prepare for the agenda on that discussion on the 28th. Going further, if you think, for instance, I should invite Montara, GCSD, and others to speak, testify at that meeting, let me know. That currently is not planned, but I'm sure we're flexible. So I just wanted to mention that it's going to be a visible item. I hope that will be working to the benefit of the Mid-Coast agencies to at least get the Mid-Coast to appreciate where they stand. Coming out of last night's wildfire issue, you're going to get a request, I hope, to put some wildfire spotting cameras on MWSD cell towers. I don't know what the money situation is going to be. I assume that it would be cost neutral to Montara, but we do have a lack of wildfire spotting cameras in our neck of the woods. The major issue discussed, of course, was Quarry Park, but there was a wider range of wildfire-related issues, including up and down the coast. It was mentioned, for instance, the fires could spread to Half Moon Bay. A lot of discussion was held on evacuation. One thing that came out just before the meeting, I got an email from Nick Calderon and Kellex that they had been denied FEMA money for some of the work they plan to do in Quarry Park. That has implications for the local hazard mitigation plan. I have a guy I know, I'm old enough to know people who know people, and I have a guy who confidentially is looking into the FEMA situation. The hope is that the county postured their request incorrectly. Fuel reduction is a temporary thing. It's a lower FEMA priority. More permanent solutions, even code changes, are funded more regularly. So we'll be looking into that. But the bottom line for the meeting, and I guess Catherine kind of said it, is we came in with a whole bunch of questions. Most of them went unanswered. County personnel talked for over half of the time. There's nobody that I can tell in charge of addressing wildfire. And there's not even a plan, and there's no plan to create a plan. So, I think in a way, I'll calm down and think about it. I've got some other people I'm working with. I don't think we got very far, but it does seem like there's an opportunity for us to make some changes jurisdictionally, and I mentioned that earlier on in my comments, coming out of this, try and get people, especially private landowners who are willing to do work to remove eucalyptus trees. And Don Horsley has even agreed that he will consider funding some of that with Measure K funds, specifically the El Granada medians. I don't see why that couldn't apply also to eucalyptus and Caltrans right away, et cetera, but we'll see. So I don't have any big news to tell you about right now.
I have one comment and then we'll go to Rick. Greg, when you reference the lawsuit, it would be accurate to say Half Moon Bay is suing the Mid-Coast agencies. It's one direction. They initiated, they're suing everyone north of Half Moon Bay.
And they have refused to drop the lawsuit when it has been brought up in conversations. So I'm sure that at the city council level, it has been discussed too.
So it's just sometimes I hear people talking about the unpleasantness as if it was some kind of general malaise. This was an action initiated, filed in court by the city of Half Moon Bay against its neighbors. So if we could just be accurate about that, I would leave it at that. I don't think it would be wise personally for us to participate in the discussion at the Mid-Coast Council. That's just my opinion, but it's a matter of the litigation. I think we can be accurate about what, who initiated and against whom. That I think we can speak to. Rick and then Peter.
First to Greg, I would hope, Greg, that you would do something like a summary or reading of your recent article in the paper that did a great historical job of describing the entire 40-year history of the situation. I think that was a great summary. I think we'd use that. Back to the wildfire, the program that the county did launch with RCD, I know up here in tree country, they brought their chipper service around, and anything you could pile on the street near your house, they came by and chipped it and cleaned up immaculately after. I have heard that's going to be repeated, but getting this stuff off the ground is a huge thing for fire safety here. And we should certainly keep talking to the county of, hey, do that again, because then we get this dead wood off the ground, and which is certainly helps the spread. So that was a great program, and I just want them to keep doing that. Thanks.
Peter?
I just want to mention the great financial damage that is being done not only to Half Moon Bay, but also by all the organizations north of Half Moon Bay that are being sued by Half Moon Bay. The legal fees are astonishingly high, for both us as well as for Half Moon Bay.
I did become aware that GCSD has spent $200,000 on legal fees. That's a number that I was allowed to say in public.
I love you.
I don't have a number for Montara.
And you do good work, and this will fuel you.
Right. Do we have anything further on this, or should we go on today?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
More shade.
Yes.
Okay. And that is at the SAM Finance Committee meeting this morning. There was a document
Michelle
produced.
has an issue here. We're getting overload. We're getting feedback.
Reminder.
There was a document produced that was on the agenda, and it shows that Half Moon Bay is now up on an annualized basis to 58.4% of the flow at SAM for this last year. And if you look at the chart, it's been going up. There were a few years where it went down a little bit, and it's been going up every year. Last year in 2021 was the largest jump in flow. It was 2%, I believe. And so when you look at what Half Moon Bay has said, I think it's important to also comment on who's using the greatest percentage of the flow at SAM.
Okay.
Would it help if I forward a draft of my material to somebody at your agency so you could review it?
I think several of us.
Okay, I'll do that.
How about since you're talking about Sam, how about Rick and me and Clemens, because we're the SAM reps and also.
Scott, is that okay with you?
I'm a little concerned. I think it's really good that you do your fact checking, and to the extent that that's what it is. I don't have a concern beyond that because it is a complicated narrative, and It's better if it's accurate. But I want to be really careful that on a matter of litigation that we don't get into trying to speak through someone else on this, if you know what I mean. Greg, you're doing a good community thing about raising an issue and trying to get all your facts right. But I hope everybody appreciates we're in the middle of a fight that we didn't start. Somebody else brought it to us, but now we have to do our part here. So we need to be very careful with coloring inside the lines on this, right?
Well, it's got absolutely, but we also have to be very careful to make sure that some of the interesting insights that have been made by Half Moon Bay don't stand unchallenged. And I think anything that's in the public domain, we can help with. Anything that's not, we can't.
So let's move on to the next item then. CSDA report. Rick?
Let me try it again. No report and no LAFCO report.
Okay. Attorney's report, Christine?
No report.
Okay. Any director's reports? Catherine?
No. I would like to start putting a question out to the community, though, and maybe we should talk about it a little bit, and that would be to have an agenda item where we talk about a bond initiative, because if we were to acquire that Caltrans right-of-way, it would be horrendously expensive, judging from the numbers that were put out last night, to be able to control the some of the wildfire dangers on it. And I've been looking at private lands that have wildfire dangers on them as well. And so I'd like to find a way we can protect our neck of the woods, so to speak. And there's not many woods between Moss Beach and El Granada, so we're in our own little island here.
Okay, any other director's reports? General manager's report?
Yes, there is an item that I would like to bring to the board's and the public's attention. We are in the process of planning some flushing in cooperation with the fire district. And so I don't have any exact dates yet, but we're anticipating that this has a potential impact, temporary impact to the community. So we're rolling out a little campaign to bring this to the awareness of the community or the sections of the district that we think that could be impacted. So there may be 2 or 3 hours during a daytime where there could be a slight water discoloration. So we're trying to take control over that. But I just want to start raising awareness that we are probably within the next 2 weeks are going to do some flushing. And I want to bring that up to the awareness of everybody. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to recess and then reconvene after the public has left into closed session for conference with legal counsel. One case of existing litigation, the aforementioned city of Half Moon Bay suing its neighbors, and anticipated litigation, one potential case. If we take any action, we'll report that when we come out of closed session. Let's take a 5-minute break and see everyone back here at 8:30.